Welcome everybody to today's webinar. We are going to talk about how to maximize efficiency, doing some effortless accounting, how to use outsourcing, and so on. My name is Swati Kulkarni. I'm the co-founder of GDI Infotech. GDI has been providing consulting services for last 30 plus years to many entrepreneurs, startup organizations, and so on. Today's webinar is about how do you get to do more when you have a newly launched venture. When you are new, when you have a new organization, as an entrepreneur, there are a lot of to-do lists and there is never enough time. And on these to-do lists, you have things that you want to do, and then there are things that you have to do. So in today's webinar, we'll hear some insights about how can you get to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the things that you have to do. And to provide these valuable insights, we have invited Trista Van Tine, the Executive Director of Michigan Founders Fund. Trista, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you, Swati. It's nice to chat with you this afternoon. Appreciate it. And I just want to also mention that GDI has really been such an instrumental organization in the community locally for, like you said, 30 years, for many years. But one thing I really appreciate about the company is that you all invest back into the community and serve on nonprofit boards, and that's really important. So just thank you for doing that. So my name's Trista Van Tine. I co-founded and run, at least until the end of this month, Michigan Founders Fund, which is a nonprofit venture development organization that supports high growth founders from every part of the state of Michigan. We want to help them find fellowship and be successful in building their companies, as well as get more engaged in the communities where they live and operate. And we do this primarily through a variety of different programs and events that take place throughout the state annually. So to date, we have 134 high growth members in our network, and our members have collectively raised over $350 million in funding. So we're really proud of the members here. It just shows how amazing the innovation economy is here in Michigan.
Great. And just that was a modest introduction of Trista. She is also the 2022 Cranes Detroit 40 Under 40 award recipient. She has been named 2021 Diversity Business Leader. Under Trista's leadership, Michigan Founders Funds did first social impact startup pitch competition, and that's something unique to Michigan. Trista, you also started the diversity, equity, and inclusivity internship program. That's something unique as well. The founders retreat programs for early stage companies are great. So thank you for what you have done at Michigan Founders Fund. Just as we start the webinar, I want to make sure I mention this, that we will take questions at the end. Please remember to put them in the chat window and we'll get to those towards the end. All right, so my first question to Trista. At Michigan Founders Fund, what challenges were you looking to solve when you engaged with GDI?
Yes, so good starting point, because so Michigan Founders Fund, we are a nonprofit, but we were basically a nonprofit startup organization ourselves when we began the work. And that means that we were a brand new 501c3. We started with a little bit of seed funding from a donor, which is like a seed investor helping a for-profit startup get off the ground. And like any startup, the co-founder of that organization, which was me in that role, is always playing multiple roles and wearing lots of different hats. And that included managing the financial accounting. And that was okay for the first couple years as we were establishing ourselves and had fewer income sources and more limited programming. But the ultimate goal of any, mission driven organization is to have impact and to grow. And that meant I needed to focus my energy on program design and deployment. I needed to manage stakeholder relationships and fundraising, and then, focus on hiring and managing the team. So as our organization activity increased in those different areas, my to put it nicely, I guess my ad hoc book management was one, not good enough, and two, not really sustainable. So that's why it was really important that, came time to engage with GDI, to take over that financial accounting support role.
You. And these are the common problems in the startup world. So how did GDI relationship help you and Michigan Founders Fund? You also mentioned it was hard on you. How did your life change since engaging GDI?
Yeah, so personally, finance and accounting part of running an organization are definitely not what fills my cup. It's not the thing I like to do, or that I'm the best at for sure. So, I was very happy to entrust that to someone else. And in the case of GEI, it's a team of support, a team of someone's that are supporting. Um, so we decided that, when you all were brought on board to handle the financial accounting, that also included supporting our financial control processes and documentation, our invoicing processes, and bookkeeping to help us remain in good standing with, some of our income sources. We, as a nonprofit, receive grant funding from federal and state sources and private foundations. And in that world, they often expect specific, reporting of expenses. So GDI has been really great to help with that too. So being able to offload that piece to the GDI team was really tremendously valuable to me and the organization, because it actually just freed up so much more of my time, in a leadership role. And by standardizing the processes and doing so at a reasonable cost, it also kept the organization really healthy.
You. That is huge. And if I may just ask, and I've never asked you this, but what is it like to work with GDI?
Well, working with you, Swati, is a joy. Clearly, obviously, you're one of the most patient people that I know. And the entire team that supports us has been really awesome since day one. So, Andy, Haley, Jana, just all great. So the GDI team, you all jumped right in. You delivered things in a timely manner for us, and your, response times to like needs and requests that might come through. Because again, as a startup, we can't plan everything ahead. So I will send lots of emails that maybe you weren't expecting, and the responses were great. So the other thing I would say is, in working with you, you all started during our like heavy season for MFF in terms of accounts payable and receivable, because we had a lot of financial sponsorships to manage for Michigan Tech Week.
Yeah.
We had an equal number of vendor payments that needed to be managed and grant reports due. So really, I don't know what I would have done if we hadn't brought GDI on and outsourced that work, because it would have been too much.
Okay. And this is all about outsourcing, maximizing the efficiency. And this is what we have been doing for last many years. We work with different companies with this kind of attitude. And people always ask, and maybe I'll ask this question to you. How did outsourcing help you instead of insourcing?
Yeah. Well, I think unless this is your specific area of expertise, or you dedicate, and by that I mean like the financial controls and accounting, unless that's your area of expertise, or you dedicate time to really understanding the best practices in accounting and tax law, I don't think that any leader or organization should continue to wing it on their own. Once they reach a certain level of financial activity and responsibility, more importantly. So we have responsibility to our team, to our clients, our customers, funders, investors, the community, the government, like any or all of the above, right? So the sooner that you can bring on dedicated support whose sole focus is really managing that part of the organization, the better off that you're going to be from obviously your own time and a mental well-being, but also from a compliance and regulatory standpoint. And I can't stress enough just as a leader of an organization, it freeing up my time in a significant way because then I could reallocate my time to positioning the organization more for growth, to investing it back into other parts of our work that allowed us to secure more funding and to launch more programs. So I guess if I could go back and maybe have even brought GDI on a quarter earlier, then I definitely would have done it because we had some reconciliation work that we went through when we started too.
Yeah, and these are many entrepreneurs start their companies at a level where they never think of accounting as a portion of their day, and that portion grows as the company grows. And as you said it right, we could have started earlier, and I think many people say the same thing. Could have started earlier, I would have had a little more stress-free months or stress-free quarters before they bring GDI on. There are questions in the chat window, but I think we'll get to those. Were you going to say something, Trista?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, I don't know if I answered the question fully about so outsourcing versus insourcing. So by that, you're meaning bringing on a staff person internally to the organization. So the reason for us that it made sense to outsource to GDI instead of looking for a full-time person was because we are still a small enough organization that we don't need a full-time finance employee. And because the cadence of our financial activity is predictable enough that having an outsourced team available to manage those ebbs and flows was just much more cost effective while providing the same level of benefits really that we would have gotten from a new hire. So I imagine even though MFF continues to grow every day, and long term we're going to have more people in the team and the organization, um, that and maybe hopefully one day we'll have an endowment too as part of our financial model. But having a team like GDI in place would then still just provide that supplemental and admin support for a finance executive when the time comes for
Yeah,
MFF to have that person in the team.
yep. And that's how our relationship with others have evolved. Is now we are more of a admin, boots on the ground, doing all the QuickBooks transactions and posting payments because nobody likes to do it. It has to be done, and we get it. Um, there are, you have been working with all these entrepreneurs through Michigan Founders Fund, and you probably see a lot of them more often than we do. But what are the typical challenges you have seen the entrepreneurs face? What do you guys discuss?
Well, the top three challenges that high growth startup entrepreneurs in Michigan face, that's the group that we really focus on serving, are capital, getting access to capital, having enough capital, fundraising. It's always number one, right? Customers, getting support and commercializing their companies and their products and getting those alpha customers so they can get those, revenue.
Yeah.
Um, and then connections to influential people that can continue to help them and also talent. So even though those three things you're not hearing those and thinking directly of financial accounting, the reality is when a small team and the leadership of that team needs to go out and raise money and needs to go
Yes.
out and secure customers and contracts, they cannot be burdened with spending their time on all of the admin work that's involved with the finance.
Reporting.
Yeah, with the back end and with the accounting. So just having a team that's dedicated to managing that for them so they can actually then go and secure all those other things is huge. So those are the things that founders face here and anywhere, I would say. And that's why, I feel that this is really a beneficial service.
Right. And my next question was going to be about why do you think this financial accounting, outsourcing, back office support, this service from GDI makes sense to other entrepreneurs? And I think you kind of alluded, but any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll just double down on what I just said, but then also something I mentioned a little earlier too, that from my experience, most founders and executives that are starting a new organization, whether it's a for-profit or nonprofit, don't typically personally come with the experience and skill set in financial accounting. So that's not going to be their strength, and it's not going to be their passion usually.
Yes. I think that passion is the main important thing. Yep.
Right. So that's the other thing I would just double down on, that this having an outsourced team who it is their strength and their passion is just, a huge value add.
Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, there are things that people want to do and things that they have to do. And for most of the people, doing the accounting and the financial reporting, it falls in that things that they have to do get to do things that they want to do. So the minimization of that list is where GDI comes in picture, and that's the service that we provide.
Mhm.
I'm going to go to the chat. There was a question, and give me a second to go read that question. So please bear with me. Jane asks, what are the best practices in working with a finance accounting outsourcer? I think that's a good question for you, Trista. What would you say?
Yeah, so I'll give you my perspective, and then Swati, you should obviously share your perspective on that. So for me, I think the best practices are, do your own homework. Just like when you bring on any new member of the team that's going to be responsible for something important, you want to make sure you check their references, talk to their other clients, and understand if their set of experiences matches your needs. So for us, being a nonprofit and having specific rules around nonprofit accounting and reporting for grants was one of the things that we were in discussion when we were thinking about outsourcing this. So do your homework, get the references. Make sure that you set the right expectations up front for both of you, because that'll just make it a much smoother onboarding process and working relationship going forward. And honestly, I think I could have done a better job with that for you guys, for GDI, because they had to come in and, really help do a lot of reconciliation for us. But yeah, so I would say make sure that you level set on all those expectations and the time commitment, and then just put the right kind of service level agreements in place based on what your needs are.
And then I will just put in my thoughts here as well. When if I were to hire a new outsourcer, or when you are starting to work with GDI, I would say that the approval matrix is really important. For example, in your organization, you may have somebody approving expense, and then somebody else signing off on that one. There would be somebody putting the charge request through. So whatever your expense processes are, documenting all that and giving that to the outsourced company like GDI is very critical, because we are not the in-house people. It's hard for us to figure out what your processes might be. So process documentation, doing the approval metrics documentation, and by that we create multiple checkpoints. That way nothing, first of all, falls through the cracks and everything is secured. um, we work with Sensei, which is our cybersecurity partner, and making sure that your the outsourcer you are working with follows all the cyber health guidelines is very, very important. Um, there should be frictionless month end and frictionless year end. And I call those two things out because um, that's the crux of the accounting. You need to have all your dollars and cents tied. Yes, that would be, those will be, best practices we follow. Cyber security, as I said, is very important, and those doing all those things are important.
Yeah, actually, Swati, I'm going to add on to that for Jen. You made me think of some other details that maybe would be helpful to give as examples. So the other thing that's important is like with setting the expectations, documenting the processes so the outsourced support can come in and hit the ground running. But also having an inventory of the different software systems that you're using to manage all of that, and how you expect GDI to interact with them or have access to them is going to be helpful. Making sure that you can set them up properly as the admin on those things, and that you figure out like a process that works for you internally and externally, having access to those different platforms. And even things like, so we use for our document storage, we have Google Suite for our organization and everything's in G Drive. And as part of the financial processes, they'll need to see where our receipts are and where some of our other documents are. So even those things, they're going to need access to. So there's just making sure you have a inventory of how you handle all of that on the back end is going to make it a lot easier.
Yep. And we can figure out, what the processes should be and how to kind of make partitions between who sees what and who has access to what. That could be part of the process documentation. It is also the part of our onboarding process. We developed a kickoff questionnaire, and it's pretty extensive, but it doesn't feel like you are doing a whole lot of work. Some of those things can be just figured out while looking at how you do your work today. And that's I call that as frictionless, or we try to make it as frictionless as possible. Trista, I don't see any other questions, but I wanted to ask you another question about, you mentioned you will be at Michigan Founders Fund until end of the year, and you are going to move on, be an entrepreneur yourself. What are you looking forward to?
Well, immediately what I'm looking forward to is a vacation. Sorry, because I'm taking some time off between winding down from MFF and ramping up my other venture. But yeah, I mean, for me, like my passion is I love building, I love solving problems, I love like um, challenges. So I'm just looking forward to kind of throwing all of my energy into a new problem that I think is important, one that needs to be solved.
All right. And most entrepreneurs start on their journey because they see that burning problem in front of them that they have to solve today. So you are in the right company, I guess. good luck with your new venture. I hope it's as successful as Michigan Founders Fund. What you have done at MFF is just phenomenal. Um, this very small organization just started out of, I guess, brain cells from you and couple other people, has what 137 members. That's great. Congratulations on that success.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know, for the couple folks that are on the call, what kind of businesses that you're running, but if you are, it's a new startup or a new company and you're looking for a support network and other people that really understand these challenges that you're going through, check out Michigan Founders Fund, because all of the people that are part of that network are willing and happy to help and to share all of the lessons that they've learned, similar to what we've been doing on this webinar, right? So please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone at the organization. They would love to help. And I think one of our members also just joined late, Lisa Simpkins. She's one such member and entrepreneur who also is a great person who very supportive. I'm sure she'd be willing to help too.
Okay. Can you tell us some of the, we are getting to the very end, but what are the successes of Michigan Founders Fund in according to you, apart from the growth in members, but what would you call as your success for Michigan Founders Fund?
Honestly, I think what I'm most proud of and excited for the team to keep expanding on is the culture shift that we've helped to make happen here in Michigan. It's about planting seeds and modeling the behavior you want to see. And I think all of our members come together with a very shared purpose and vision for what it means to give back, to give first, to help others. And by helping others, that's how you are successful.
Yeah.
And that culture and the different things that we've done through MFF to demonstrate that across the state through events, through conferences and presentations, by just supporting and telling the stories of our founders, frankly, pretty easy thing to do, has really excited me about where Michigan is going as a state when it comes to innovation. I think a lot of people that message resonated with people. And I've seen a lot more organizations and individuals kind of get involved and, do their own version of that kind of cultural activity since we started doing that work 4 years ago. So that's what I'm really excited about, is just all the people that have come together and the kind of culture that we're helping to establish.
Yep, definitely. That put Michigan on a different plane almost, because Michigan was just not Silicon Valley, and now people talk about Michigan and Silicon Valley. So compare, that is great to hear. We are at time. I don't see any other questions. And thank you again, Trista. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for chatting with us here, and have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and best of luck for your next venture.
Thanks, Swati.
Bye-bye.